Hi everyone, Andrew here with a new YouTube video. On this one we're gonna talk about trading times and which trading times are the best and which trading times I actually trade. So as you probably know, if you studied Forex trading or anything about trading, you should know there are a lot of sessions, but the most important sessions that I personally use for trading the Forex markets are only 5. Those 5 are Asia, Frankfurt, London, New York and New York Stock Exchange. Of course, I don't look at the whole session. Usually I just look at the open of them, and I'm gonna tell you why in just a second. If you don't know the trading sessions time, you should go over to forex.timezoneconverter.com. You just have to enter your time zone. I'm currently in Malaysia, but it's just set to Euro Bucharest because that's the time I use. So as you can see, it just shows your current time, your time zone and everything. And here you have the sessions. In this one, you don't have all of them. You don't have the New York Stock Exchange open, which is perfectly fine. I'm gonna talk about that in a bit. So let's just use the GMT time because it's the most used one. So let's start from the Asia session, which is called Tokyo. Tokyo starts at 11 p.m. GMT time all the way to 7 a.m. So the way I think about it is that we have 3 important sessions, which are Asia, London and New York. These are the times that you need to look at most. Asia session, because it's the first one that starts the day off, usually just prints the first data for the day. The way I trade is I analyze the trading data that I have from the previous sessions in order to make a decision and a direction on the market to execute a trade. An Asia session is really important for everyone who's a member of my mentorship knows that. I actually look at the Asia session because I want to know what London wants to do. The next session is Frankfurt, Germany, which most of the times I just look at the first hour of the open because it usually brings some volatility in for London session. So that's from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. That's the time I usually come to the market and start looking at my pairs to see if something happens. Next session, and one of the most important ones, is London session, which starts at 7 a.m. and stops at 3 p.m. As you probably know, London is the first volatile session of the day, comes after Asia, and usually it makes a huge move or just a medium move, it doesn't really matter, but usually sets the tone for that day. So London is one of the best sessions, but I still think New York is the best just because you have more data to back up your trades. So London usually, from my experience, it just spikes a lot, it makes a lot of moves, doesn't really have a direction. Most of the times it's harder to actually trade the London session, but it's really important to look at what it does. Next session we have is New York session, which starts at 12 p.m. all the way to 8 p.m. New York, of course, USA, it's gonna come with a lot of volatility because most of the traders trade the New York session and most of the banks and the algorithms, they operate during New York times. So that's the session you actually want to focus on. You want to focus on that session because first of all, you have data from Asia and Frankfurt and London to see what potentially the New York algorithm wants to do in the specific day. So let's say London and Asia took price higher, then you can expect a pullback in New York for them to continue higher. Just gives you a lot of data to actually understand what the market wants to do. And usually during New York times, you're gonna have a big move. So if you catch the move, then you're gonna basically have a winning trade. Next session, which nobody really talks about in Forex, is the New York Stock Exchange Open. New York Stock Exchange Open comes 1.5 hours after the New York Open, and that's the time where the stock market open. The reason why it's important is because there's a lot of volume coming in during that time. So the first 30 to 1 hour of the New York Stock Exchange Open, it usually brings a lot of volatility in, a lot of liquidity in, and then probably you're gonna see a bigger move. So the way I think about it is, if I didn't really have a big move in New York or London, then the New York Stock Exchange is gonna have the big move. The New York Stock Exchange Open is the time I usually trade gold just because it's a commodity, and usually that's when it starts like moving a lot. So I try to avoid trading gold in London and New York unless I have a really good setup. You're gonna notice if you backtest a little bit on New York Stock Exchange Open, you're gonna see that gold usually moves a lot during that time. Also GU, EU, they move a lot. Also the indices, of course, US30, NAS, and so on. After New York Stock Exchange is open, 1 hour, 1.5 hours after, you're usually not gonna, the big move has happened and you're usually not gonna catch another move, so it's best to just go up. So now that I have highlighted all the 5 trading times, you can use this with your time zone to see them. Also, You can use the script that I also use, which is called sessions highs and lows. This is given to my mentorship members. It just marks Asia session with a blue square, but there's a lot of scripts out there. And then you see you have also the purple one is Frankfurt Open, the first hour of Frankfurt, and then the next hour of London session. That's because the opens of the sessions are usually the most volatile. So that's when I start looking for a trade. So we have all these sessions. So the question is, which session should I trade? Now it all comes down to your personal schedule. If you're working during some time and you can't really trade or watch the markets, you should probably, so let's say you work during Frankfurt and London session, what you want to do is trade in New York and New York Stock Exchange Open. So just 2 or 3 hours, watch the markets then and see if you have an opportunity to trade. If you work during New York session, just trade Asia or London, but I don't really recommend trading Asia session just because it doesn't move that much. For me, I try to trade only 2 or 3 hours per day because I reach a level where I don't need to spend that much time on the charts. So what I do usually is just watch Frankfurt all the way to London Open, so that's like 1 hour and a half. 30 minutes after Frankfurt Open, I go on the charts, I start analyzing, see what happens, and then I wait for an hour, 1 hour and a half until London opens and just the volume comes in to see if I can have a trade. If I don't have a trade, usually the time between London and New York Open, you're not gonna see a big move, you're just gonna be consolidating, so you're gonna waste your time if you sit on the charts during those times. So what I do next is just have that time free to work on other stuff, and then I come back half an hour before New York Open. Why half an hour? Because I want again to analyze everything, to see what London did, to see what Asia did, and to see if I can have a potential trade when New York Open comes. Then I just sit like 1 hour, 1 hour and a half until New York session opens. Usually I take like a half-hour break before the New York Stock Exchange comes. So that's, like I said, 1 hour and a half after New York Open. So I usually have like a 30-minute break before coming back and see. If I don't see a move in New York, then I'm gonna watch for a move in New York Stock Exchange Open. Usually that's the time I look at gold to see if I have a setup to potentially trade it. So all in all, I usually spend like 3 to 4 hours a day on the charts. Of course, if I catch a winning trade in London, I'm not gonna trade New York. So if I catch a 1 to 5, 1 to 10, I'm probably not gonna trade because it doesn't really make any sense. I've made my money. I just want to have my free time to work on other stuff, my other businesses and so on. So I don't see a lot of mentors talking about the trading time. They just say trade all day, which is not really okay because you're not gonna have moves all day. You're only gonna have moves when sessions open. So London, when London opens for the first hour, hour and a half, you're gonna have a move probably, and then New York and New York Stock Exchange Open again, half an hour, 1 hour after they open, you're probably gonna have a move because all this liquidity comes in, all this volatility comes in, and you're gonna see a move. So there is no point in trading outside of those areas because you're just gonna waste time watching the charts, probably taking a stupid trade or 2 stupid trades, and then when a good setup comes in the session, you're not gonna execute because you had those 2 or 3 losses. So that's a big mistake that a lot of traders that I saw do, a lot of my students did also before I actually showed them how to do it. Just because they were not using their time in an efficient manner. They were spending times on the charts at the wrong time, they were taking stupid losses, and when time came to actually trade, they didn't trade because they were not prepared mentally, because they took a loss, because they spent a lot of hours on the charts and so on. Because our mind only has a few hours of full 100% focus, so we really want to use those when we have to make a decision, and that decision is usually risking money to make money by trading. I hope this video helped you guys with finding the right times for you to trade. If you have any questions about this, maybe you need help finding a right session to trade, just leave a comment down below. I'm gonna reply and try to help you. And as always, just subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed these videos and if you want me to make more videos about trading, and I'll see you guys in the next one.